Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. And we have three fabulous people for you this afternoon or this morning, wherever you happen to be. And I shall be introducing them all in just a moment. But before we start, if I could just start with a couple of housekeeping issues. This is a panel. So yeah, I've got some questions, but I'm sure you've got lots of questions for these folks too. So if you'd like to ask a question, you can either ask a question live. If you look at your control panel on the right-hand side, you can click on the icon to raise your hand, at which point we can unmute you and you can ask the question live. Alternately, use the question module. As you can see down there, you'll see the module labeled questions on your dashboard on the right-hand side. Type in the question and we'll pick up those questions as we go through. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists for you this morning. And our first panelist is Mark Scher. He's the VP of UCaaS Product and Marketing at Intermedia. So there's Mark up there. He spent 26 years of his career in telecom and cloud, transitioning from carrier to enterprise to SMB. So Mark's covered the whole market. He's deeply passionate about creating simple and integrated experiences for users. One of his specialities is crafting messages to bring the complex and intimidating into focus for SMBs. So for any of you on the call where SMB is your market, and I'm sure there are a lot of you, Mark will be able to answer a lot of questions about how you message for that market. And as someone who concurrently works in both product marketing and product management, he has the ability to align the product with the messaging and connect both to the user experience. Now, Mark is also an avid mountain biker, snowboarder, wake surfer. I'm not sure what that is, Mark. You'll have to tell us. And tennis player. So let me just hand over to Mark for a second to talk a little bit about Intermedia before I introduce our next speaker. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Pleasure to be here today, and nice to be able to chat with you all. Intermedia is a cloud communications company. Some of you may know us. We've been around for quite a while. We started in hosted email, specifically hosted Exchange. We're one of the first companies to take Exchange and put it into a data center and then sell it as a service. But for the last 5 or 6 years, we've really been focusing in unified communications, contact center, online meeting, file syncing and sharing, and really bringing that all together into a really cohesive package for the SMB, and specifically through partners. Very uniquely, and we're really one of the very few companies out there that resells our services to partners. So you buy the services wholesale from us, it's your brand, your bill, you do the customer service, you get the top line revenue, and you own the customer relationship. And we know that owning the customer relationship is probably the most important asset that any partner would have, right? So our job is to empower that, give you the products and the services and the support for you to go out there and really own that customer relationship. So again, really great to be here. Excited to hear your questions and help any way I possibly can.
Fabulous. And our second speaker is Rob Ray. Rob probably needs very little introduction to many of you. He's extremely well known in this space. Rob's the SVP of Business Development for Datto. He works managed service provider industry for 20 plus years. He's been rated as a top channel influencer by Jay McBain of Forrester. He's a global award-winning speaker. And before COVID-19, traveled 250,000 miles a year for events, so he's thoroughly enjoyed sitting at home for the last couple of months. So I suspect, like a lot of us, is beginning to get a little fed up with that. And he's also on the board of directors at CompTIA. So Rob, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about Datto.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you can hear me okay. Unfortunately, everybody just seems to have jumped on my Wi-Fi network. Is audio okay? You can at least hear me?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so Data is a fairly young company. We started in the backup disaster recovery space. We focus exclusively, and pretty much since the beginning, have focused exclusively on managed service providers. So we're 100% channel. Obviously, MSPs have been working the SMB markets around the world. So that's been our audience, and we've been able to grow the company. We're close to about 2,000 employees now, 35 offices around the world, and with the managed service provider community, just taking the whole SMB market, outsourced IT by storm. So very pleased to be a part of all of that. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only person Jay McBain knows, which would make anybody #1 on his list. So
Excellent. And our next speaker is Eric Buck. And Eric is the VP of Global Distribution and Digital Partners for Hitachi. Eric's been at Hitachi for 1 year, focusing on optimizing their digital transformation strategy through CSPs. He's the channel chief and has been at this business for over 20 years. So he's earned every single gray hair. Not that, of course, you have any, Eric. He's also held roles from leadership distribution to VAR to vendor. So he really understands the whole of the marketplace and will understand what a lot of the people on the call are going through at the moment. And Eric's #1 driver this year is to crack the nut for Hitachi Vantara in the mid-market by leveraging partners who are managing through the journey to managed services. And finally, Eric has many hobbies, but recently, as in yesterday, he took up retro restoration by acquiring a 1966 International Harvester Scout, which I think we have a picture of in splendid condition just at the moment. So I think the picture on the left is what he acquired, and the picture on the right is what he's rather hoping it's going to be over time. So, Eric, without further ado, tell us a little bit about Hitachi and what you guys are looking to do.
Yeah, absolutely. As you guys can tell, I've got my work cut out for me. So Hitachi Vantara has, first off, our parent company, 98 different companies under the umbrella. It's amazing some of the different technologies we have in our company. Most of you that do know us as an infrastructure player, but we've made a number of acquisitions over the years that open up the analytics market. We've created a CSP go-to-market, which has thrived very well for us. And naturally, as we continue to evolve, we can partner in many different ways. But historically, a place where we haven't been strong is in the mid-market. And having been on the other side of the fence, and also having worked at other places where we've had a strong mid-market, the only way that I know to get there is through partners such as you all. So we're really eager to make sure that we're doing a good job of sharing our direction and efforts and investments in that space to partner, and taking your feedback and incorporating it, because it's obvious we won't be successful without commitments and support from you to help devise and develop the right approach. We've got some pretty cool things we're working on this year for the mid-market from a infrastructure as a service play. The good news for us and you is that because of our minimal footprint, we're not seeing channel conflict as we go to market down there. We can truly go in and partner with the as a service partners and really just make it a pure play that works for you. And of course, because it's incremental to what we're already doing, the pressure isn't there for us to recruit a whole bunch of partners. We just want to get the right partners.
Fabulous. So before we start, just so we get a fix on where everyone is, we're all in the midst of COVID. A lot of the states are beginning to come out, ease lockdown. I guess most people on the call, if we asked you all, you're all in different places with different rules, but would like to get a feel for where everyone is business-wise. So we're going to ask you to answer a couple of polling questions. And the first of them is, what effects the COVID-19 crisis had on your revenue forecast for June this year, i.e. next month? Is it none at all? It's pretty much what you expected at the beginning of the year. My forecast is up 0 to 15%, it's up 15% plus, it's down 0 to 15%, or my forecast is down 15% plus. If everyone could vote, I would very much appreciate it. Got about half of you having voted so far, so we'll keep the poll open for a few moments. So keep those votes coming in. There's still about just about 20% of the people on the call at the moment who haven't voted. So please do pop those votes in now. Leave it open for another few seconds. Please choose one of the options. Keep it open for 5 seconds longer for the last of you to vote. And Caleb, if you could share the results of the poll. So here we have 20% say it's business as usual, 77% up 0 to 15%, 7% up 15% plus, 37% is say their forecast is down 0 to 15%, and 29% say their forecast is down 15% plus. So a lot of us a little worried about what's going to happen in June. And perhaps, Eric, if I can start with you, any thoughts or comments on those results?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually were just working on a study with iPad, and we're doing a webinar on it here in the near future, where we interviewed a lot of solutions providers, and what came back was one of the best ways to grow the business, because a lot of them saw a strong Q1 but are seeing a very soft Q2, is through the cloud business. So anything that you're investing, it's all becoming decentralized, as we know. So there's work from home is being hardened, so there's still opportunities there. But anything that's security on the endpoint, or any effort to embrace cloud, is naturally, so the more resilient places that we're finding are the as a service offerings. So hopefully that benefits this audience.
Okay. And Mark, any comments on this?
Yeah, so we are a cloud as a service offering, yeah, we're seeing, look, we're seeing a mixed bag, of course. We're seeing those customers who are struggling through their partners and looking for help. One of our core products is a cloud phone system, and a phone number, for example, is one of the most important assets a company has, right? You don't want to give that up. That's probably one of the last things you want to give up. One of the nice things about a cloud solution is it can scale up and down, right? So if you need to scale it down for a while, you don't have to. It doesn't have to go away, right? You can scale down your service to a point where it's very minimal, but you keep your phone number, you keep some aspects of it running, and then as you're able to reopen or scale your business back up, again, that's kind of one of the great things about cloud solutions is they scale back up pretty easily with you, opposed to hardware solutions where you have these big step functions and you have to either under or over invest. So the fluidity of business and the ability to match that with cloud has helped a lot of folks.
Okay, and Rob, any thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with both. We obviously we're pretty diverse as far as our product set goes. We only deal with MSPs, and in the managed services space, there's a couple of advantages that MSPs have got, where they're pretty diversified as far as the portfolio that they've got. The ones that I've seen that have been severely hurt are the ones that are verticalized into very specific categories that have been damaged by COVID, things like hospitality. Those have been, and oil and gas have been heavily impacted. But those that have been, or have a pretty diverse set of customers, have actually thrived a little bit through this. They've found some good opportunities. The other advantage here too is that the large project work has all been put on hold, but the recurring revenue services and IT being an essential part of their services continues to be there as well. So really the only business that MSPs are losing is ultimately if the end user's going out of business or is suffering as a result of COVID. Beyond that, The recurring revenue is helping significantly. The diversity is helping significantly. If anything, actually, there's opportunities to go up market a little bit, and some MSPs are claiming pretty good gains through this, a little bit higher than the 20% I see on this poll, or 34%, 14%. We're seeing some pretty good gains in certain places. I do agree, though, that the as a service products and us having a number of different products that we actually sell through MSPs are as a service products, like cloud backup, for example, and remote monitoring sales, RMM sales, they have gone through the roof, whereas our more traditional sales like backup, disaster recovery haven't stopped, but they've slowed down for sure. So we definitely are seeing that pivot as far as different products go.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've seen a massive spike in cloud contact center on our side, right? Where you think about the traditional contact center, lots of people packed together, shoulder to shoulder, right? That's not happening right now. But you still need these contact centers for support, for sales. Sending these people to work from home, traditional contact center solutions won't do that. Cloud contact center solutions will. So massive uptick there, and a lot of our partners have really been jumping in here and having opportunities to bring in significant new revenue that they hadn't seen before.
Yeah, we've seen two verticals as well pop out. One is manufacturing, where it's required. So a lot of IoT adoption happening in manufacturing. And the other one, we're seeing more of our partners bring solutions to the table that involve things like temperature sensing, because naturally that's becoming a front and center conversation more so than it ever has been. So yeah, I agree with the guys. There's new opportunities out there for sure.
Okay. And moving on from there, second polling question. We're going to have 3 to start with, and then we'll dive into some questions. And as I say, looking forward to receiving lots of questions from the people in the audience for these guys. We've got some really interesting folks on the panel. So our second poll is, are clients struggling to pay you? No, it's business as usual. 1 to 15% of clients are struggling. 15 to 30% of my clients are struggling to pay. More than 30% of my clients are struggling to pay. So if everyone could answer those questions now, pop in the one that's most relevant for you. Okay. Got about 60% of the people on the call who voted so far, so we'll leave it open for a few moments longer to allow everyone else to vote. So please do vote now. Pick one of those options. Leave it open for another 5 seconds for the rest of you to vote. Please get those votes in. Okay. Almost there. And Caleb, if you could share the results. So 36%, it's business as usual. 42% of you have 1 to 15% of your clients are struggling to pay at the moment. 15 to 30% of my clients are struggling to pay, say 12%. And wow, 9% of you must be really hurting if more than 30% of your clients are struggling to pay. And Rob, if I could ask this in twofold for you, I'd ask you to comment on the results, and also, what do you think the kind of things are that vendors should be doing to help partners through this?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and of course we as an organization, we have 20,000 MSPs that use our products around the world, and they service that SMB market, and your numbers here, you're kind of flush that through, because if your ultimate end users aren't paying you for the services that you're delivering, then how are you going to pay for the services that you're using through the actual vendor? So ultimately, each vendor had to be prepared for this. These numbers aren't bad. What we have seen, and actually there's some pretty that 1 to 15% and business as usual kind of thing is kind of what we're seeing across the board, and I think we talked about it where there's opportunity coming in, but there's also the existing business is something that you definitely want to hold on to and retain. We use the analogy of it's kind of like a bucket. There's a hole in the bottom of our bucket, and we're losing some of the bottom end of our funnel. However, the rate at which we're filling the bucket with newer opportunities and larger opportunities is actually ultimately probably going to pay off in the long run, even though we may lose and have some casualties in the short term. In regards to what vendors are doing to support, you know, this is it's kind of a double-edged sword here. We've had organizations, we've seen vendors that came out and made the big splash right out of the gate, which is, you know, here's a big war chest where we're going to support our partners with millions of dollars, but no real strategy or plan in place. Or others that came out and said, here's a ton of free product, you can get it free for 90 days, and those kinds of things. Those are fine. I don't think it necessarily matches what the need was. And one of the things that I learned through this, and it's something that our organization practiced, was kind of customizing what the need was, and having conversations with our partners, which is ultimately our partners having conversations with end users of, what do you need? Like the whole idea that you're just going to hit the panic button and immediately start throwing cash at everybody isn't necessarily the right solution. Some people needed more strategic help. Some people needed free product. Some didn't need free product. Some just needed more product. Some did need financial support and help, and others didn't. So, you know, to make blanket statements like that rather than trying to customize a solution for each individual, which is the approach that we took, and we still take it. But again, our curve showed that initially out of the gate, we were getting 1,000 calls from 1,000 people asking for, you know, relief of some type, more so panic. But over the course of time, it's actually become pretty stable. And I think we've got some good stable numbers right now. And hopefully, if there's no resurgence or more quarantine or a shift or change in this, I think we can comfortably say that it's going to flatten out here.
Okay, Eric, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, a couple. So one, similar to the poll and Rob's comments, we've been doing some case-by-case things. But in fairness, Kim King, who leads our overall channel strategy, has been working with a couple of financing companies to drive more benefits to the partner community to help on the financing side of things. But we've also, our CFO does a blog where she keeps people updated, our customers and our partners, on how we're helping, because it's not just a financial situation that they're running into naturally. Partners need help with resolving installs that are up and running and there's problems, and how do we do managed services, and of course there's governmental restrictions on who you can send, and so we're trying to help in other ways as well. And then naturally we found that things like broadening our investment in our inside sales organization to help touch more customers remotely, you know, creating more digital marketing components and campaigns. And of course, as I mentioned in the beginning, this developing mid-market as a service. Naturally, the other gentlemen have mentioned that stream of business has a little more resiliency, because companies, as they go to OpEx, it helps them match that expense a little better, even if it's a slight premium over the CapEx expense they would have classically made. So I think those are some of the other ways in which we can help, and of course helping them develop new solutions as this market continues to evolve is going to also, I think, be on all three of our focus areas, is how we keep in front of that and help the partners.
Excellent. And Mark, any comments?
Yeah, just a few. We did a bit of everything to try to help in any way we could. The first thing that we did is we took our AnyMeeting Pro solution, which is a competitor to GoToMeeting, Zoom, and we made that free for the rest of the year, knowing that you know, both partners and their customers were out there looking for solutions, looking for ways to stay connected. I mean, that was the first thing we did. But then as we stepped back and started talking to partners and listening to what they really needed, what they really needed was more marketing help. We've always kind of prided ourselves on our ability to create content for our partners to rebrand and send out, but this was different. This was much more you know, real-time communication with their customers. I personally have done probably 6 webinars with and for our partners to their customers. Never seen that before, never been asked for that before. So we're really seeing a time where you know, the MSP community is needing to reach out and educate and provide a lot of information very quickly and very broadly to their customers. And so our focus has been trying to enable that, not only with the technology to do it, but the content, what to say, how to educate your customers, how to think about our solutions in this new context, how to wrap your head around what's going on, and then how to explain that to your customers. So that's been a massive and ongoing focus of our company.
Fabulous. And we have one final poll before we get into a lot of questions for these guys. And so our third poll is, as we begin to move out of lockdown, what do you need from these guys the most? What do you need most from your vendors? Extended terms, help and advice on remote marketing and sales initiatives, help in understanding how to access government support, more business and financial information, or market sector insights to help me target potential customers. So if everyone could vote now, just check all of those that apply. And about half of you have voted already, so please keep those votes coming in. Okay, got about 75% of you having voted so far. We'll keep the poll open for just another few moments. Keep those votes coming in. Okay, if we could share those results, and I think these are really interesting. So if we could share the results. Caleb, are we having an issue? Here we go. So 26%, and you could vote in multiple categories. So 26% of the people on the call wanted extended terms. 47% help and advice on remote marketing and sales initiatives. Looks like we know how to get government support. We've got enough information on that. More business and financial information, no. But market sector insights to help me target potential customers. So where should I go? Who should I be looking at? You guys have got great insights, more money than the partners have to spend on research. And Mark, you seem to set this one up beautifully in your previous comments. So if I could start with you for some comments here.
Yeah, happy to, and maybe I'll kind of skip the remote marketing, because kind of already discussed that a little bit, and focus on the market sector. Look, I've been, as many of you probably have, reading lots of surveys about remote work. I just read one this morning, and it's kind of hard to believe, because I don't believe anything that's that wild, but 99% of respondents in this fairly significant survey said, you know, they want to continue, you know, with this remote work. So I don't think, you know, when you're getting numbers that big, you don't have to worry about, you know, vertical segmentation. You can go horizontal and you know, be focusing on how do we enable remote work, right? When you're getting big numbers like this, it means every sector, right? Every sector is a potential customer. Who's the buyer, right? That's where I think we're seeing a bit of shift, right? Where traditionally we're selling to, you know, the IT decision makers, you're getting a lot of HR people now kind of in the mix. So you should prepare yourself for that you're going to be talking to not just technology decision makers, but also, you know, policy decision makers around, you know, what are we going to do with remote work? Look, we're seeing some companies are saying, look, we're going remote work forever. Facebook says we'll be 50% remote work in 5 years. Look, the pendulum always seems to swing very hard one way or the other initially. We'll see where it ends up. The reality is we're going to be traveling less and remote working more. When we talk to our partners, we're trying to actually avoid the term, and I've just said it like 20 times, remote work, because that's a now solution. But what our most successful partners are doing is they're talking about like just flexibility. Giving businesses the flexibility to adapt to whatever's currently happening. I mean, the reality is we're starting to open up, but we don't know what this means. In some places, we could see a big spike in the fall. People have to retract. And what you want as a partner is to give your customers tools that just give them the flexibility to ebb and flow and pivot, bend without breaking, right? We want our businesses and their systems to be able to bend and flex and not break. And so when we think about this market sector question, I would think horizontal, not vertical. I would think flexible solutions that help them bend, not break.
Okay. Eric, do you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, sure. The bending and breaking, that makes a lot of sense to me. You know, the as a service approach naturally. You know, also I've talked to some companies that are going back to work, and it's interesting because they're looking at smaller shifts of people. So then the office space has to be reconfigured. Even their approach to entering the office, they're doing things like taking temperature in the parking lot to give you a pass to then get in to the building. So there may be some opportunities there to help people from a return to work perspective, even though we will, as Mark so clearly said, do more work from home, so to speak, and that we still will have people returning to the office. It's just a natural productivity piece, and I think some actually miss the office, quite frankly. And so we've found that to be, and so of course we're naturally working on, as I mentioned earlier, we've got this temperature sensing solution that our partners who historically it may have been a specialty solution that certain partners wanted, but now we're seeing a broader interest in how they deploy these digital solutions that can help solve for those needs of either returning to some locale where there's going to be a broader audience of folks, and they want to try to protect that audience as best possible. And then I think the comments here, about remote marketing, those resonate. So we're spending a lot of effort trying to digitize everything from not just the conversations that we're having and Zoom meetings or other virtual type engagements, but all the way down to how we support you in the client engagement from a managed services perspective. We do things like smart hands, where the vendor should be helping walk you through a troubleshooting situation, whereas before they may have showed up with you on site. Of course, if it's necessary, then they come on site, but there's a lot more steps, I guess, to getting to some of the same spots that we would have just immediately jumped to previously. So don't miss those steps, because those naturally are opportunities to provide more efficiency and gains. And that's where we're trying to spend time, is really not only in those markets that need it, but how do we take each of those steps and create more efficiencies and more information along the way.
Awesome. And Rob, do you want to come in on this one?
Absolutely. All right, buckle in. Because I'm going to agree and disagree with a whole bunch of things. Now, first of all, by no means am I an expert on anything. I know absolutely nothing about this, and if I did know about this, I'd be a lot wealthier than I actually am. So this is all just me kind of just thinking out loud. I believe that the workplace is going to go right back to exactly where it was. I think there are going to be some subtle changes, meaning like everybody sure has enjoyed working from home to a certain extent, but then you look at kind of the downfalls that we've had. Alcoholism is up, spousal abuse is up. There is like very significant depression issues that are going through society today when you isolate people away. Human beings at our cores, we're pack animals. We enjoy being around other people, whether it's just even in an office environment, whether it's a social environment. So I think back to the days of when we were dealing with H1N1 and Ebola, and back then we were traveling to trade shows. We were still going to shows. What the difference was we maybe didn't shake each other's hand for there was about a 3-month period where we did like elbow bumps, and everybody was carrying around hand sanitizer with them and using this every 30 seconds. The main difference between those days and now, in my mind, is social media. We have way more information than we could ever process today. And I think that's where, you even see the arguments sometimes. And these are very intelligent people that are arguing one way versus another way. Ultimately, I think that, we're going to default back to human nature, which again is to be pack animals and running around in packs. which means that if you look at things like travel, for existence, I would disagree with Mark. I think travel is going to return, and I think it's going to return with a fury. And the reason why is because you have thousands and thousands of planes that are parked right now and cost money every single day, which means the airlines are going to offer sweet incentive deals for us to be able to get back on these planes and travel somewhere, almost to the point where it makes more sense than actually even doing remote meetings. And hotels are in the same situation. Now, what does this got to do with technology and the question that's at hand? It's the opportunity for the actual channel. And I think if we pigeonhole ourselves and say work from home is going to be the exact thing that we need to focus all of our energies, marketing, and assets on, I think that's a mistake. Transition back to work and we need to focus all of our energies, money, marketing, everything around that, I think that's a mistake. I think there's a beautiful part about the channel, and why this is the biggest opportunity for the channel right now is the channel is viewed, especially through COVID, as agile, as responsive, and cross-functional. Okay, these are straight from Gartner, where they're doing, and Jay McBain, as we talked about at the top, he's literally saying that the channel is agile, responsive, cross-functional, and thought of in those ways where they were not thought of necessarily pre-COVID. And if I came to you guys and I said, hey, we're all going to be trapped at home for 30, 60, 90 days, maybe 120 days. If I said this to you 3 months ago, you all would have thought I was nuts. And if I told you all to go to your end users and tell them that we need to work on a plan for the next pandemic that comes through, your end users would have probably fired you, thinking you're crazy and you're just trying to get more money out of me. Now, that's going to be normal. The fact that we need to get involved in these conversations, that we need to be planning for these things. Then when you say, hey, there's a chance we might be isolated again for COVID-20 or whatever the next reiteration of this is, and we need to be prepared for that. But it's not a work from home, it's not a transition back, it's a work from anywhere opportunity. And I think that's, if you focus on the fact that we're agile, responsive, and cross-functional, and focus on those three strengths of your organization, and you go to all of your end users and all of your prospects and say, I am ready for any scenario, whether it's back at home, whether it's remote at home, or back to the office, work from home, work from the cottage, work from the beach. I have a solution for you. I can help you. You're going to be going with great connectivity. You'll be able to do your business and continue to stay in business as a result. And I think that's where we need to focus our strengths. So that's kind of the market insights, and that's kind of where we're pushing a lot of our partners in that direction. And we're doing that through things like very simple checklists that we offer as assets for our partners to go to their end users and have conversations that are more consultative around what is actually happening out there. This whole work from anywhere is becoming a campaign where that's going to be the messaging that we're having MSPs push out to their end users to find more opportunities. And education is going to be absolutely critical, because we haven't had the conversation in this call about security, but security is still a massive issue. And we just all took a massive jump back 74 days ago when it comes to security. So these are all very good, relevant conversations that all can lead to more profitability as time goes on. Okay, you can unbuckle your seatbelt now.
Hey, if I could just have one more comment. I would say also less about the vendor, but more about you in the market. I think employee retention seems to be top of mind out there. Targeting really good people that you can add to your organization as well. This seems to be the right time to be doing that. So proactive companies are thinking about how they get back to normal by making sure they have the best team possible, either with their existing team or a blend of adding some folks.
Eric's absolutely right. Pre-COVID, we were struggling, like not just we as in Datto, but MSPs were struggling to find good talent. Now there's a plethora of it on the market. So I totally agree with you.
Excellent. I've got a great question coming in that kind of bounces off all of that. How would you advise that we handle the issue of creating confidence in our employees? Obviously, a lot of people very nervous at the moment. This is a really interesting question coming in. What have you guys been doing, and what advice have you got for the people on the call?
I mean, I'll jump in. I've talked to some of our partners and customers out there, and some of them have instituted a phased return to work, depending on the state they're in, because for them, the culture in the office is irreplaceable. It's one of the easiest ways to kind of build that confidence back, is having people see each other, be in an environment they understand. Now, if you can't do that, you know, we've all, I'm sure we've all at least attended one video happy hour at this point, but you know, naturally finding ways to engage remotely and get your teams to use video. This is a good time, by the way, for those that hadn't adopted video to really kind of push it through. But I also encourage, when you're working from home on a more long-term basis like this, that you don't expect everybody to show up to these video calls all suited up. You know, you should, as the leaders, you should set a tone that while you're expecting results, it's okay to relax the dress code a little bit and you know, just kind of get them comfortable that it's okay to work from home. Because some of these folks that have had to make that transition, unlike, you know, us who are used to doing this is the first time for them, and they're still not sure if they're doing everything the right way. So I think reinforcing what they're doing, letting them know that they're doing the right things, because the level of anxiety, I think back to Rob's point about just being at home for that long of a period, is a challenge. But then folks who aren't used to managing their schedules and themselves, or managers who aren't used to it, you know, I watched my two sons, I have a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old in their schools, and how they adjusted to the environment. My 10-year-old school did an amazing job. They had him in the backyard making iMovies and things. My 16-year-old, they were on lockdown, and the teachers weren't very good at it. And it was incumbent upon these students to try and adapt to these changes. And, you know, so I think sometimes as leaders, we have to take a step back and make sure that we're setting the right tone, that our folks are looking to us to remove that anxiety as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think, you know, to Rob's point about us being pack animals, you forget how much interaction you have had in the office, right? Just bumping into someone while you're heating up your leftovers at the microwave and catching up, right? These things were things we took for granted, right? They happened every single day. You didn't really realize you were doing it. You got up, walked around, you talked to people, you connected. In this kind of current situation, you have to be much more purposeful, and you have to purposefully reach out to people, schedule time, and connect. And it's super, super critical. This can be very isolating. Not everybody has a family that's surrounding them, although sometimes we want to, you know, strangle them. But for those who are alone at home, we really need to be purposeful and reach out. One thing that we do, you know, Eric mentioned a happy hour. Our marketing team has a weekly happy hour. Someone is responsible for hosting it. And it's, at first I was a little kind of skeptical, but oh my gosh, it's been a blast. So as a matter of fact, this afternoon I'm hosting, and the topic is teach us something in 60 seconds. So every person is going to come to the call with something they can teach the rest of the group in 60 seconds. We did a name that tune, a movie trivia, and our Canadian team showed us pictures of things from Canada that no one had ever seen before, and we had to guess what they were. And it's really cool. Rob, you're probably from Canada.
I am.
So you would have got this stuff, but it was a great way to connect, and you could tell people really, really appreciated it.
I wonder when Canadians became so exotic to America, can't even recognize the things that we're doing. It's unusual. But look, there's a great opportunity here, and I'll share with you that when this first hit the fan, my job literally is to travel around the world. I was down in Mexico, finishing up some meetings, and I was back. I'm actually based out of Connecticut now, so I'm in the United States, but my anchor airport is JFK, and I'm flying from Cancun up to JFK, and then I'm supposed to jump on a flight from JFK over to Sweden. And literally mid-flight, my flight gets canceled to Sweden, obviously because of all of this. And then all of a sudden I have to go home. And then all of a sudden the organization's telling me there's a good chance we might be home for, if you guys remember, the start of this was 14 days. This was only supposed to be a 14-day quarantine at the beginning, even though I think powers that be think that, or knew that it was going to be much longer than 14 days. But so I'm thinking, man, what the hell am I going to do for 2 weeks? And I got really down about it, because you know, I've got a team of people that just travel and go to trade shows, and we've got neither of those things for 2 weeks. So now I'm like, how am I going to keep my staff? How am I going to keep them busy and employed and all this? How am I going to keep myself employed if, you know, my primary is to go and shake hands and kiss babies, and we're not allowed to do either of those things anymore? I kind of, I have to change my mindset. And one of the things that I did was I challenged myself to write a blog that is a positive. What's the silver lining out of all of this? And it was early on that I wrote this. the reason why I'm telling you this, and by the way, from a marketing asset perspective that Datto is on, it's been the #1 thing that we came out with so far in the last 2 years. And why is that? And I think in times where we're constantly being inundated with negativity, you turn on the TV and everything is bad. 100,000 people in the United States have died from it. Like, it's constant doom and gloom. I think that if you can be the positive influence, if you can be the guy that's always looking for the silver, if you can be the beacon of hope through all of this, I think there's some massive wins there. And it's not just for your team, but it's also for your end users, and it's also for the people around you in your community. We want to hear good news right now. So if you're going out to or looking for something to say to your end users, think about something positive that you can spin. What's the good part about this, and focus on those good parts. Like, I'm an MSP who's actually been growing his business through this, and he has lost some business. But what he did was he calls his prospects and his customers, and he asks them 2 questions. He says, number 1, what's going on with you guys right now? And number 2 is what can I help you with? And it's just like, whether it's personal, professional, whether it's or not, this has actually worked really well for him. He's actually ended it into his calls me every day and asks me those questions. I'm like, dude, but it makes you at least think, and it makes you think that people are out there caring about you. And you'll find that there's a lot of people who want to do business with you, the reasons to work with you. I think there's a lot there if you can be that beacon. And it goes back to our meetings, and we're at it. None of us are, but we've been thrown into it. My CEO is a phenomenal guy, great leader, but he's
You're breaking up a bit, Rob.
Somebody cue the barking dog.
So I've got another really interesting question coming in here. We've all had to adjust to remotely servicing our customers. You're in much larger companies facing the same thing. Are there any key lessons you've learned that we can learn from? So Mark, I don't know whether you want to come in on that one.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shift, right? Where traditionally the MSP is well, I mean, it depends on how you're engaging with the customers, but they're usually in one place. Sometimes they're feeding through an internal IT out to you and looking at things first. Where now you've got folks spread all over the place, much harder to get to their internal IT to get to you. You know, we're seeing a mixed bag here, where the real key, though, is being present and letting the users have a way to get to you, whether it's through email alias, through chat, through phone call, and being responsive. I think, look, we're all struggling. Rob is struggling with bandwidth, right? We don't have consistent bandwidth at home like we do, you know, big fiber, you know, trunks into the office. So the problems are going to be a little different. Where, I mean, and the amount of bandwidth that's being consumed in the home, you know, I'm on a video call, daughter's, you know, on a video with school, my wife's probably doing a video, and then in the afternoon, everyone's on Netflix, right? So, you know, I think that to the extent that you're able to get in and look at each at that user's specific area of problem, it's probably going to be bandwidth, but that's the challenge, and that's what we're trying to assist our customers with doing. As a matter of fact, we've built a tool that allows our partners to go in and view from a dashboard perspective what's going on with each user on a user by user level, and they can look at the QoS, they can look at how their meetings went, and they can troubleshoot it right there on the screen. So you know, tools like that, you know, a lot of those haven't been developed right at that kind of user level. look for solutions that have that can drill all the way down to that user insight, because you're going to be kind of working there for a while.
Eric, any thoughts?
Yeah. I think what I've seen that I find to be really interesting is I think we're getting good at setting up conference calls. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, my schedule's full of some calls that probably I should send out copies of death by meeting so we can all figure out where to spend our time. But customer calls have been fantastic. And we're getting better at, where it used to be you'd go see each other and talk through it and then maybe deal with it a little later. I'm finding that we're getting more efficient with, jumping on the phone, having conversations, including whoever needs to be on it, whether it's the end user, the partner, us, other folks. And everybody now understands that because they're also not in conference rooms at corporate and they can't make your meeting, they're now all readily available. And I feel like we're getting into a bit of a groove with how we deal with things coming up and being more effective at engaging our installed base and our partners around, issues and challenges and closing deals and executing on them and so on.
Excellent. And Rob, let me switch gears on you for a moment. Not just support, but I know for a lot of people, remote selling has been an issue. You can no longer turn up and sit in the CEO's office of your customer. You're having to do everything remotely. That's been a real shock to the system for a lot of people. What have you guys learned at Data, and what advice have you got for people on the call in terms of how to handle that? You might be on mute, Rob. We can't hear anything. I have to say, in the 10 years I've known Mr. Ray, this is the first time I've ever seen him silent. I mean, this does need to be recorded. So, Eric, if you want to come in on that one, remote selling.
Yeah, of course.
Any advice?
Of course, yeah, no doubt. I think bring the team with you. That's the best part about this is now that it's all virtual. The number one piece I can tell you is don't leave resources on the sideline. I just had a call.
Good Wi-Fi.
I think his bandwidth's catching up. So just to finish that, we've got a college that we agreed to an as-a-service arrangement with one of our partners. And it's what I find to be intriguing is that when we're closing that deal, we're working that deal, all the assets of the companies are available to line up and jump on together and work through it. And it's an iteration of what I said before, but that makes it so much more effective at solving problems and moving forward. There's less delays and follow-ups outside the meeting and who can I go engage? And people are just bringing everybody to the call and working through the issues. And you might have 2 or 3 calls on that issue that same day just because the follow-ups are happening so fast. And I think that's kind of a plus side, right? It's almost like fast food, right? We're in an environment where we can go faster and there's less of the formality around it. And I think that's helping to close business in a much more effective way than it was in previously.
Mark?
Yeah, I love what Eric's saying. We're seeing that every single day. I mean, you think about it, right? In the world where we could go and visit a customer, you'd send a couple people, especially if you're going to put them on an airplane, right? But even if it's local, right? I mean, there's travel time. So, well, are you going to have? We're not going to bring this person, but it's also awkward to have them call in because that, when you're the one person calling in, there's a bunch of people in the room, they're all laughing, you didn't get the joke, can't hear anything. But when we're all together in the same kind of environment, what is to stop you from bringing in all of the right people to help you sell, help you support, help you whatever it is? I think that is it really helps, and I've seen it. We're doing it. We're helping our partners do it. When we are out there talking to our partners, we're bringing the whole team in, just on a video call like this. And I think it's super effective.
Excellent. Well, we're pretty much out of time, so I'd like to say a huge thank you to Mark, to Eric, and to Rob. And for everyone on the call, Intermedia have very kindly donated a gift certificate for everyone on the call, so you can be entered the draw for a $250 Amazon gift certificate. Just complete the survey that's coming up after the call. But I think we've had some really terrific insights, and a huge thank you to Eric, to Rob, and to Mark. Thank you very much indeed, guys. And just before we close, let me just remind you of the next webinar that's coming up. And that's 4 CEOs are going to be talking on June the 18th about their plans to grow their business as lockdown eases. So you'll be hearing from fellow MSP CEOs on the 18th of June talking about what they're doing. So I think that's going to be a really fabulous next webinar, and a great follow-up to some fabulous contributions that we've had today. So gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed, and thank you very much indeed, everyone, for attending. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for being here, and thanks for putting it together.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Be safe.